Welcome back. So let's turn our attention to our Sunday discussion where we unpack the top stories of the week, from the drama in Parliament during the President's Q&A to the breakthrough in Olorato Mongale's murder and other gender-based violence cases. I am joined by Sinet Solomon, a political analyst. We're joined as well by Mbuyiselo Botha, the founder of the South African Men's Forum, and as well as Bulelwa Adonis from Women for Change. Guys, thank you so much for joining us, and we really appreciate your time. I think, Ndate Botha, I want to start with you. This has been an incredibly difficult week for South Africa. We saw the funeral of Olorato and the minister in the presidency for women, youth and people and persons with disabilities saying this is such a stark reminder of the reality of the dangers that South African women live with.
Absolutely. Good evening, Naledi, and thank you for inviting us. I think I fully agree with the minister, but maybe to take it a step further, Naledi, this evening, but also to do two things. To, in fact, say that condolences to the family, but to say that Olorato, as the mother said, had fought. But other than that, she had done everything in the book. I mean, everything. I mean, she informed her friends. She has done everything that a woman in South Africa could or should do and must do. But the point is that, when Naledi, is women in South Africa are not safe anywhere. Some would argue that she should probably have gone to a place that is public, but look, we have cases. I mean, River, where was she killed? Uyinene, where was she killed? I mean, Anen Boysen. The list is long. So one can't argue for those who say that, look, you should have done this and this. And we must always be reminded, Naledi, of the fact that nowhere is a woman in this country safe. I mean, a 6-month-old baby gets raped and killed. What has she done? So I'm just saying that we must also commend the police for the swift action. I mean, what the police have done reminds us that, I mean, of their slogan to serve. I mean, we must commend them and say that, well done, police. In no time, we knew where the car was and the suspect was cornered. And we must also applaud police that criminals can't just get away literally with murder. Police have a right to ensure that we live safely in our homes and we walk safely in our street. So one has got to say, in this instance, Olorato, may her soul continue to rest in peace. And condolences to the family, but importantly, that she did everything in the book. In fact, you can't fault her. It is the perpetrator. It is this man or these men who did this that we should point fingers at them and not at Olorato. We're not Naledi.
Yeah, Bulelwa, come in here because we've got the campaigns, we've got the hashtags, we've got all of this work that's being done, not just to raise awareness, but to really keep the attention on stories of femicide in the country, and yet we still have these gruesome things that are coming out. I mean, just over an hour ago, we had a breaking news story of a 14-year-old's body that was found in open veldt. Why are we not getting it right?
I mean, looking at the fact that, our country, we have all of these good systems in play, like Ndate Botha so perfectly said that in the case of Olorato, she checked every to-do list in a sense of what we need to do as women to supposedly be safe. But Naledi, as you've mentioned, even with the campaigns, the awareness, this and that, there is a lack of change because I think there's a lack of urgency. We give attention to a 365-day pandemic, only 16 days of the year. We pick and choose which case is going to trend and which one is popular. But yet we're still the same country that has normalized victim blaming. We're still the same country that has normalized rape culture. It's common for us to switch on the TV, like you just mentioned now, with the breaking news case with the 14-year-old body now. It's uncommon to us. I think as a country we've grown numb to it. We have a lack of faith in our justice system, and I think that on all aspects, our leaders, as a society, I think at this point we can't be pointing fingers at everyone, but I think it's about time that our leaders, our government take this seriously, that there's a tightening in our justice system. Our justice system is still so broken. SAPS still has to tighten up its belt. I understand, that, there was movement from the SAPS, and a manhunt and all these good things. And, we're thankful for that. But then simultaneously, we are still talking about 2 men that got off on bail a month prior. So what does that tell you? We can't, us as an organization, we're not jumping in excitement as yet when it comes to the SAPS. So I think it's different factors like that, which is why we are still rape capital of the world.
Yeah, well, we continue our discussion as we reflect on the past 7 days and some of the top stories of the week. And we're still with our guests, Sinette Solomon, Buyiselo Bota, as well as Bulelwa Adonis. So guys, thank you so much for just being so patient with us with some of those technical gremlins. But before we got cut off there, Sinette, you were making the point around what it is that needs to be done, and certainly the lists that need to be made public so that we're aware of the perpetrators that are in our communities.
Yes, I definitely think that sharing the list of perpetrators would go a long way in terms of deterring people from actually engaging in such crimes. While there is obviously a fine balance between the PAPIA Act in terms of sharing people's personal information, there have been instances where countries have shared such lists, and it has gone a long way towards keeping people safe. There have also been instances where people would be prevented from living in certain areas if they engage in certain crimes. For example, if you were a sexual perpetrator or you were someone who's convicted of sexual offenses, etc., you would not be allowed to live close to schools, close to parks where children play, etc. And that goes a long way towards keeping people safe. While there's obviously a matter of rehabilitating people and reintegrating them into society, there's also an importance in terms of protecting the South African population. And I think that, as the other two colleagues have rightfully mentioned, if the police are doing their bit in terms of actually prosecuting or arresting people for these crimes, and the criminal justice system goes towards actually convicting these people, there's only one further step that needs to be done. And I think that that's definitely something that we should consider as a country.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take some calls. 01059460010. Sylvia is calling in from Pretoria. Sylvia, good evening.
Good evening, Naledi.
Thank you so much for calling. Share with us your thoughts.
Naledi, what touches me for the week was the story of Olorato. Naledi, the world, the country is getting very, very, very dangerous towards any woman in this country, any child, any young woman. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Let's all pray and ask God to give us strength to fight this thing, because it's getting out of hand and no police can help us. Some of the police are doing their job very good. I am also a GBV.
Yes, Sylvia, survivor.
Naledi,
yes, I'm listening.
I am also part of those women who went through GBV. I pray for them and I pray God to help us all.
Yeah.
And the police, the East police, I just want to give them the praise, the way they helped me when I went to them and break the silence that I've been living for 5 years.
Sure.
After I was diagnosed with cancer. My husband saw that I didn't die, so he started to abuse me with any way he can, until I went to them and I asked for help and break the silence.
And you were helped.
Please, woman.
Yeah. Sylvia, thank you so much for calling. The difficult reality of so many women in South Africa. Andile is calling in Durban. Andile, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm well, sir. Thank you for calling. Talk to us.
Yes, I've got a problem here. In fact, this thing, this gender-based violence, it starts at home. The parents should know where the children are. And you see, in our days, what happened was that 5 o'clock, like at home, we were calling our home Westville Prison, because 5 o'clock everybody should be in the yard. It makes easier that when there's no child in the yard, then the parents must know where the child is at that particular time. That's the first one. The second one is one that shocked me, is one of the Afrikaners who was in the USA that has killed his wife on social media. I don't know whether it's fake news or it's true, but it shocked me if they can do that.
Okay, that needs to be verified, but thank you so much for calling in, Andile in Durban. So Andile makes an interesting point, Mr. Botha, and this is where I want to bring you in, because he says, well, there has to be a culture in our communities that says, let's ensure that our most vulnerable are home and they're safe. And I wonder what you make of that sort of argument. You talk about how Olorato, for instance, had done everything that she possibly can to alert the people that were closest to her about her whereabouts. In the case of a 14-year-old whose body is found in an open veldt, can the argument be made that, well, they should be at home at 5 o'clock instead of getting the perpetrators out of those communities so people can feel safe around the clock?
You see, Naledi, it's the same as saying that, but you know, why were you wearing that short dress? Why were you, in fact, drinking his money? What did you expect him to do? We never ask the question, why was she violated? Why does he violate? Until we get to a point where the focus, and some of us have said this for years, until we get to a point, because you see, it's easy to blame the victim or the survivor. Naledi, it's easy to say that, but yeah, you know, why, Naledi, are you talking on your phone inside your car at 8? We are not asking the person who violates you and asking the question, why is he violating her? Why are we saying that the 14-year-old should not have been in the street at 9 evening? We are not saying anything about this boy or these criminals or these perpetrators who violate. So until there is a shift, until there's a paradigm shift, until our thinking, how it's wired, we will continue to raise these questions without finding the solution, or without saying, look, the problem is us men who violate women. It has nothing to do with women. It can't be correct, it can't be correct that we then say that, but you know what? Yeah, but no, Mariliana, why, was she that she been? And not ask the question, but why did he violate her?
Yeah, the attention needs to be put on the perpetrators. Bulelwa, perhaps you want to come in on that one. And just as we wrap up this part of the conversation, Bulelwa, perhaps your thoughts on the confidence that moments like these really have in moments like these and what they do for our confidence in policing in the country.
It completely dismantles our confidence, because Naledi Moleo put it so perfectly, because what the caller Andile, his argument is quite a poor one, to say it kindly, because it sounds to me like the caging in of victims and survivors, and merely being a woman or a child in this country, how there's a need to cage us as women or us or children, as opposed to dealing with the perpetrators, as opposed to dealing with predatory behavior. So in this instance, with arguments like that, with mentalities like that, it's very disheartening, because we get to this point as society where, looking at the state of the SAPS, where there is a huge lack of confidence. I mean, there's a reason why there's still 95%. There's a 95% rate of for instance, rape cases that go unreported. I know we're not necessarily speaking about that, but just with regards to GBV, there's a reason why there's a 95% statistic of unreported cases. I know that's in relation to rape, but still I believe that it's a good picture of just the state of confidence that people have within the justice system and with SAPS. So there's a confidence that continues to decrease, if it's even there. Because I think at this point, with the survivors and victims that speak to us on a daily basis, we can see that there is a hopelessness found in society, amongst women, amongst children, amongst family, amongst friends.
Yeah. You know, it's not lost on me that we're going into Child Protection Week. And, you know, the focus of this week is going to be what kind of gaps there are in our ability to protect our children. And as we start Child Protection Week, we do so reporting on a 14-year-old who's lost their life in such a tragic manner. And so, you know, really something for us to reflect on. But just as we close off, perhaps let's look at some of the political big stories of the week. Sinet, perhaps you can help us with those. Elon Musk officially leaving the White House in a very interesting moment. What do you think that means for activities in the White House and certainly relations, if at all, with South Africa?
I think that a lot of Americans are quite relieved with him leaving. As we know, a lot of people were not necessarily in favor of the Doge policy and what they were doing. There was obviously a lot of cutting in terms of essential services. There were a lot of departments that did not welcome the interference by Doge. And I think that a lot of people are obviously relieved. And I think that a lot of people are also aware that the loss that Tesla suffered had a big impact in terms of this decision from Musk to actually distance himself from the White House. And I think that there's a lot of speculation about what's going to be happening now. We know that they didn't necessarily meet their financial targets as they would have wished to, but also possibly there could be conversations about the reversal of some of the decisions that they made, as there have been State Departments that actually need those resources that Doge actually cut.
Yeah, and then of course President Cyril Ramaphosa appearing in the National Assembly for the first time since coming back from that visit in the US, and then we see chaos in Parliament. I mean, you can talk to me about what comes top of mind when you really start to consider what we saw in the Parliament during that Q&A session for the President.
I think that a lot of people have been frustrated by a lack of answers in terms of our president. As we know, he says a lot without saying a lot. And I think that they wanted to use this opportunity, this Q&A, to get answers to questions that were rather pressing. And I think that the manner in which it went, or the manner in which the parliamentarians went about it, was a bit disruptive. I think that there's more of an ordered and structured way that you can go about getting these answers, because if we do have these disruptions, unfortunately, very little will be achieved. Yeah. And I think that's what we saw this past week.
Yeah. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. We do have a caller on the line. Sifudi is calling in this evening. Sifudi, good evening. Thanks for calling.
Evening to you, Naledi.
Evening to you, Sifudi. Thank you for calling. Talk to us.
You know, the audacity of criminality, whereby these criminals are doing as they please, because they know they can be arrested today and tomorrow they are given bail and go and continue to do the same thing. I think, Sis Naledi, we ought also to look at the RDP of a man. We said we are liberated, but we forgot where this man is coming from. This man used to be treated as a man and being traumatized. And what we must not forget is that trauma can be inherited, can become genetic, and we need the RDP of the soul to deal with what this man is going through.
Yeah.
Good evening to you.
Good evening to you, Sifudi. Thank you so much. And I think that's a really great place for us to close it as we continue thinking about the work that South Africa needs to do to protect its most vulnerable. Thank you so much to our guests, Mbuyiselo Botha, the founder of the South African Men's Forum, Sinet Solomon, political analyst, as well as Bulelwa Adonis of Women for Change. We take a short break. We are back in a moment.